Isabella stared at the small brass key glinting in the afternoon light, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. 30 years. 30 years of searching, and her dead father had hidden it in a lockbox all along. She sat cross-legged on the floor of his decaying bedroom, surrounded by empty bottles and the stench of a wasted life, holding her mother's locked journal, the one she'd found at age 12 and been denied access to ever since. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, to leave the past buried with the man who'd kept these secrets. But she'd come too far. With a sharp breath that felt like free falling into darkness, she inserted the key into the lock. The soft click that followed would destroy everything she'd believed about that Halloween night in 1993. If you're ready to uncover the devastating truth Isabella discovered, hit that like button and subscribe for more haunting true stories. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now let's go back to where it all began. October 31st, 1993. 8-year-old Isabella Martinez adjusted her black witch's hat, practically vibrating with excitement. The aroma of her mother's pumpkin bread filled their Connecticut home, mingling with autumn leaves and her father's cologne. Halloween was perfect, or so she thought. Lisa Martinez, 35, with gentle hazel eyes and auburn hair, painted green makeup on Isabella's face. There, the scariest witch in Connecticut. She hugged her daughter tight, holding on just a moment too long, something Isabella wouldn't understand until decades later. The front door opened. Christopher Martinez entered with the confidence of a successful lawyer, his sharp features and perfectly styled hair commanding attention. But his smile was thin as he surveyed the elaborate Halloween decorations covering every surface. "All this must have cost a fortune," he said, examining a ceramic pumpkin's price tag. Lisa's smile faltered. "It was on sale, Chris. We'll talk about it later." He loosened his tie and disappeared into his office, leaving a chill that had nothing to do with October weather. Isabella's best friend Megan Hartley arrived at 6, dressed as a vampire with plastic fangs. During dinner, Christopher picked at his pizza while nursing his third glass of wine. Lisa's hands shook slightly as she avoided his gaze. Small signs Isabella noticed but couldn't interpret. "I'll stay here," Christopher announced as the girls prepared to leave. "I have work to finish." His wine glass now sat beside a tumbler of amber liquid. The neighborhood glowed with jack-o'-lanterns and children's laughter. For 2 hours under orange and purple lights, everything felt normal. Mr. Derek Pemberton, the elderly neighbor, gave them full-size candy bars. As he looked at Lisa, something passed between them. Concern, pity. "You take care now, Lisa, you and this sweet girl." They returned home at 8 to find Christopher passed out on the couch, empty bottles on the coffee table. Lisa went pale. She rushed Megan's departure, then sent Isabella to bed early despite her protests. "Not tonight, baby. Please." The strain in her voice made Isabella's stomach twist. Sleep was impossible. The house felt electric, dangerous. Then the yelling started. Isabella crept to her door and listened, heart pounding. "You think I don't know about the money, Lisa? About him?" Christopher's words were slurred, venomous. "There is no him, Chris. You're paranoid and drunk." Lisa's voice cracked with fear and frustration. "Raymond Torres from your art class. I've seen how you smile at your phone. He's just a friend. You've driven everyone else away." Glass shattered. Isabella pressed her hand over her mouth. "Maybe you should just leave then," Christopher roared. "Maybe I should. Maybe Isabella would be better off without watching this every day." Door slam. Engine starting. Isabella ran to her window just in time to see her mother's Honda taillights disappear down Maple Street like red demon eyes vanishing into darkness. She found Christopher collapsed on his bed, unconscious, empty bourbon bottle beside him. He was out cold. Isabella watched the clock all night. 10 p.m. Midnight. 2 a.m. Dawn. Her mother never came home. At 7 a.m., Christopher stumbled into the kitchen, gray-faced and trembling. "Where's your mother?" "She left. After you fought. You don't remember?" His coffee cup slipped from his hands, shattering on the tile. He grabbed the phone, dialing frantically. No answer, again and again, no answer. He looked out at the empty driveway. No, no, no. At 9:15, a police car pulled up. Detective Sarah Brennan's kind eyes couldn't hide their sadness. Officer Marcus Vaughn removed his hat as they approached. The way Brennan said, "May we come inside?" told Isabella everything. Lisa's white Honda had been found wrapped around a tree on Highway 47. Single vehicle accident. She'd died on impact around 11 p.m. Christopher's wail was inhuman, a sound that burrowed into Isabella's soul. He collapsed, sobbing. Detective Brennan crouched beside Isabella on the stairs. "Honey, is there another adult we can call?" Everything after felt like watching someone else's life. Aunt Patricia arrived. Neighbors brought casseroles. Lisa's sister Jennifer screamed at Christopher about the fight, his drinking, how she'd warned Lisa to leave years ago. Through it all, Isabella sat numbly, unable to cry, certain this was her fault. If she'd been better, they wouldn't have fought. If she hadn't wanted those expensive decorations, her mother would still be alive. They buried Lisa on a gray November day. Christopher gave the eulogy, voice breaking as he spoke about his beautiful, loving wife and deepest regrets. Whispers spread through the packed church like poison. She was so upset when she left. He'd been drinking. That poor little girl. Mr. Pemberton knelt beside Isabella after the service. "Your mother loved you more than anything in this world. Don't you ever forget that." The words couldn't penetrate her wall of guilt and grief. Months became years. Christopher lost his job, his drinking now impossible to hide. The house became a mausoleum. Father and daughter moved like ghosts, barely speaking. Isabella was 12 when she found her mother's journal in the attic, a small leather-bound book locked with a brass lock. Her heart leaped with hope that died when she couldn't open it. "Dad, can you help me open this?" Christopher looked at it like a snake, hands trembling. "I don't know where the key is, Bells. I'm sorry." He handed it back and walked away. She kept it in her nightstand drawer for years, a mystery she couldn't solve. Isabella moved out at 18, fled to college across the country, and barely looked back. Christopher descended further into isolation. Some distances were too far to bridge. Isabella was 38 when Christopher died of liver failure. Cleaning out his house, she found a lockbox in his closet. Inside were documents, his will, and a small brass key on a chain. She retrieved the journal from her old nightstand drawer. The key fit. It turned with a soft click. The entries revealed her mother's secret pain, fights Christopher didn't remember, the fear Lisa lived with. And then, October 30th, 1993, the day before Halloween, the final entry. "Tomorrow I'm going to tell him. I've been saving money for 6 months, not for any man, but for freedom, for Isabella's future. Tomorrow, after Halloween, I'm taking Isabella and leaving. I have an apartment lined up. Tomorrow everything changes. Tomorrow we start over." The journal fell from Isabella's grasp. Her mother hadn't been running away that night. She'd been running toward freedom, toward a life where Isabella wouldn't grow up in fear. And Christopher had known. He'd hidden the key for 30 years. Isabella found retired Detective Sarah Brennan through a web search. They met at a cafe overlooking the ocean. "You were always suspicious," Isabella said. Brennan nodded. "Your mother's blood alcohol was 0. She wasn't impaired. But the brake lines showed signs of possible tampering. Nothing conclusive, but enough to raise questions." Isabella's blood ran cold. "My father had an alibi. He was passed out at home with you. The timeline made it nearly impossible. But nearly impossible isn't impossible. He could have done something earlier, before drinking. We couldn't prove it. The DA wouldn't prosecute. So you just closed it. Called it an accident due to emotional distress. But I never stopped wondering." Brennan squeezed Isabella's hand. "Your mother didn't run from you. She was fighting to save you both. Whether your father knew her plans or just feared she'd leave." She trailed off, leaving terrible implications hanging. Isabella drove to Maple Street. The house stood empty, scheduled for demolition. She walked through the abandoned rooms, thinking of her mother's final journal entry. Tomorrow everything changes. Except tomorrow never came for Lisa Martinez. In the overgrown backyard, Isabella scattered her mother's journal pages. She watched them flutter like white birds finally set free. She would never know for certain what happened that night. Whether her father had sabotaged the car, whether it was truly an accident. Some questions would never have answers. But she knew this. Her mother hadn't abandoned her. Lisa Martinez had loved her enough to plan escape, to dream of better, to be brave. That love had survived even death. Isabella pulled out a photo from the lockbox. Halloween 1993, hours before everything fell apart. Lisa and 8-year-old Isabella, both smiling, both in costume, both beautifully, heartbreakingly alive. "I love you, Mom," Isabella whispered. "I finally understand, and I promise I'll make it count." She drove away from Maple Street for the last time, leaving the past behind. But somewhere in the gathering darkness, she could almost hear her mother's voice, soft and loving and finally at peace. "Be brave, baby. Be brave for both of us." If this story moved you, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for watching, and remember, healing begins when we stop blaming ourselves for others' choices.